My daughter told the venue I was just a guest. 10 minutes later, the manager said, "Then why is your card the one they want me to run?" That was the first time anyone said the quiet part where I could hear it. The rehearsal dinner was being held in a stone barn outside Lancaster, Pennsylvania, with white lights wrapped around old beams. I arrived early because that is what men like me do when we are nervous. We notice exits without meaning to. I was 66, a widower, and a retired municipal facilities supervisor. For 38 years, my job had been keeping public buildings from embarrassing people. Heat working, doors latching, contracts signed before vendors unloaded a truck. That last part mattered more than anyone in that room knew. My daughter, Nora, stood near the seating chart with her future mother-in-law, Monica Vale. Nora wore the careful smile she used when she wanted everyone to think our family was simpler than it was. Raymond, Monica said when I stepped close. Not Dad. Not Nora's father. Raymond like I was a neighbor. Nora touched her pearl earring. "This is Raymond Ellis," she told the couple beside Monica. "He's one of our guests tonight." One of our guests. I looked at my daughter first. She did not look back. Her eyes stayed on the seating chart where my name had been moved from the family table to a small round table near the hallway marked vendors and overflow. I had paid the first venue deposit in March. I had covered the hotel block when Nora said Blake's family was between payments. I had sent the catering hold then the final floral balance. I had done that quietly because Nora asked me to. Quietly, I now understood meant invisibly. I did not correct her in front of everyone. I did not ask why my place card sat beside the photographer's assistant. I folded the seating card, once slipped it in my jacket, and said, "It looks beautiful, Nora." Her mouth trembled. Monica's did not. Before Nora could answer, a woman in a black suit crossed the barn with a blue folder held against her ribs. Her name tag read, "Elena Ruiz, Event Manager." She stopped beside me and lowered her voice. "Mr. Ellis, could I borrow you for a moment?" Monica's smile sharpened. "Is there a problem with the room?" Elena did not look away from me. "There is a problem with an authorization." I followed her into a small office that smelled faintly of printer toner. On the desk lay a form titled Private After-Party Addendum. The signature line was blank. Elena pointed to the payments section. "Mrs. Vale asked us to add this to the same card on file." "My card," I said. "Yes, sir." She turned the page toward me. "But your original authorization only covers the contracted deposits listed here. This addendum requires a new signature from you." Outside the office door, laughter rose from the barn. Elena tapped the blank line once. "So before I refuse it formally," she said, "I need to know whether you approved this." I looked at the unsigned form, then at the card authorization beneath it, and understood that being called just a guest was not the insult. It was the cover. I did not answer Elena right away. There are moments when silence looks like confusion from the outside, but inside every piece is finding its place. The seating card in my jacket. Nora's lowered eyes. Monica's careful use of my first name. The blank signature line on the after-party addendum. My card number masked, except for the last 4 digits printed beneath a charge I had never seen. "How much?" I asked. Elena turned the page. $12,400 before service fees. I looked through the little office window. Monica stood near the barn entrance with one hand on Blake's sleeve, talking as if she owned the air between people. Nora stood beside them, still smiling at guests who did not know she was trying not to cry. My daughter had always been good at holding a face together. Her mother used to say Nora could put a ribbon on a broken box and make you afraid to open it. "What is included?" I asked. Elena read from the addendum. 2-hour private after-party premium bar extension, late-night plated bites, separate lounge setup, additional cleanup labor, and private shuttle coordination. None of that was in the contract I signed. "No, sir." She said it plainly without apology, and that made me trust her more. People who pad a lie usually decorate it. Elena kept the facts bare. I tapped the original authorization. "This is the only thing I signed." "Yes." "Venue deposit, final venue balance, standard catering hold. Nothing beyond those listed charges." "Then why did Mrs. Vale think you could run it?" Elena hesitated. "Not because she did not know, because she knew too well. She said the card was already on file, and the family preferred not to bother you during dinner." The family. That was a useful word. It made theft sound like coordination. It made embarrassment sound like kindness. It made a man at an overflow table sound like an accounting detail. "Did Nora ask for the—" I said. "Your daughter did not sign this form." That answer did not clear Nora. It only moved her from the hand holding the pen to the person who had let the door stay open. Elena slid a second page across the desk. It was a vendor ledger, the kind of clean, boring document that never raises its voice because it does not have to. Beside the after-party line was a timestamp 6:42 p.m. I checked my watch. That was 8 minutes ago. Yes, 8 minutes ago Monica had smiled at me beside the seating chart. 8 minutes ago Nora had called me a guest. 8 minutes ago someone had decided that if I could be moved out of the family row, maybe I could be moved out of the authorization too. "Did you refuse it already?" I asked. "I paused it," Elena said. "That gives you the decision, not them." For the first time all evening, my breathing slowed. Outside the office, Monica turned and looked through the glass. When she saw the papers on the desk, her smile disappeared for less than a second. Then she walked toward us. Elena closed the folder. "Before she comes in," she said, "I need to ask one more question." I already knew I was not going to like it. "What question?" I asked. Elena kept one hand on the folder as if paper could become dangerous if left unattended. "Before Mrs. Vale comes in," she said, "I need to confirm whether there are any other verbal approvals we have not been told about. Sometimes family members discuss upgrades privately, then expect the venue to sort out the paperwork later." That sounded polite. It also sounded like she had seen enough weddings to know that flowers and liquor could make honest people sloppy and dishonest people bold. "No verbal approvals," I said. "If I agree to pay for something, I sign for it." Elena nodded, once then opened the original payment schedule. There was my name in clean black type, Raymond Ellis, limited guarantor. Not sponsor, not host, not honored father. Just the person legally attached to the agreed charges. I remembered every line on that schedule because every line had required a different version of pride to swallow. The venue deposit came first. Nora called me on a Tuesday evening and tried to sound casual. She said the date would be released if they did not place the hold by Friday. Blake's family had promised to split it, she said, but Monica wanted to review liquidity before sending anything. I did not ask what that meant. I knew what it meant. Someone wanted the benefit of a room without being first to reach for a wallet. I paid the deposit and told Nora she could repay me after the honeymoon. She cried then, not loudly, just enough for me to hear how tired she was of needing me. The hotel block came next. Nora said out-of-town guests were asking questions, and Blake was embarrassed because his mother thought the selected hotel looked too plain. I covered the agreed rooms because I wanted my daughter to sleep during her wedding week. I did not cover suites. I did not cover lounges. I did not cover any room that required a separate floral arrangement and a tray of imported cheese. The catering hold came after that, then the final floral balance. None of it made me wealthy. It made me careful. I still clipped coupons for dishwasher detergent. I still changed my own furnace filters. I still drove the gray pickup with the dent from the library loading dock. But I had saved for Nora, because after her mother died, saving for my daughter became one of the ways I kept breathing. That was the part Monica would never understand. Money given in grief does not feel powerful. It feels like carrying a box with the bottom taped too many times. Elena turned the addendum back toward me. "This is separate," she said. I read the description again. Private lounge, premium bar, shuttle coordination, additional cleanup labor. Nothing about keeping the wedding from collapsing. Nothing about feeding guests already invited. Nothing about Nora needing help. This was not an emergency. It was a party after the party, and Monica wanted me to pay for it from the overflow table. Monica knocked once and entered before Elena answered. That told me almost everything I needed to know about her. Some people ask permission because they respect a room. Some people knock because they enjoy hearing the warning before they ignore it. "There you are," Monica said, looking at me as if I had wandered away from a guided tour. Raymond, Elena, and I were just smoothing out a small hospitality matter. Elena stayed behind the desk. We were discussing a payment authorization. Monica's smile did not move. Exactly. Hospitality. I had spent enough years around public contracts to know when someone was trying to replace a precise word with a warmer one. Overruns became adjustments. Delays became weather impacts. Extra charges became hospitality. "This is an after party," I said. "A small one," Monica said. Elena looked down at the addendum. 2 hours premium bar lounge setup, plated late-night menu shuttle coordination. Monica gave a light laugh. That sounds larger when you read it like a subpoena. It sounds like $12,400, I said. For the first time, she looked directly at me. Nora has been under enough stress, she said. Blake's family has certain expectations. We are trying to avoid embarrassing her. There it was again. Embarrassment used like a leash. Nora had used it softly when she asked me to keep the payments quiet. Monica used it like a polished hook. How would not having a private after-party embarrass her? I asked. Monica sighed, not with sadness, but with the impatience of a woman forced to explain weather to a man standing in rain. "Oh, this is a veil wedding now," she said. "Our guests have traveled. There are professional relationships involved. It would look strange if the evening ended like a church basement reception." I thought about the church basement where Nora learned to dance on my shoes at 6 years old while her mother stacked folding chairs. I thought about the memorial meal after my wife died, when women from that same church washed dishes until midnight and never called it low class. "Church basements have kept better promises than ballrooms," I said. Monica's eyes cooled. "No one is attacking your background, Raymond." "You just did." Helena's pen stopped moving. Monica turned to her. "The point is simple. The card is already on file. Raymond authorized the event. We do not need to drag him through every adjustment." "This is not an adjustment," Helena said. "It is a new addendum." "Then remove his name from whatever line is making this difficult and keep the payment method. We are all on the same side." That sentence landed harder than her insult. Not because it was clever, because it showed the plan without shame. Remove my name where respect was visible. Keep my card where money was useful. Helena placed the unsigned addendum between us. "Mrs. Vale," she said, "which part of this charge did Mr. Ellis approve?" "Mas." Monica looked at me, and for one sharp second, her smile finally became what it had been all along. A dare. Helena did not blink. That was when I realized she was not simply a manager protecting a venue balance. She was protecting the one thing contracts are supposed to protect before money ever moves consent. "Mrs. Vale," she said, "I cannot remove Mr. Ellis from the authorization and keep his card as the payment method." Monica's smile returned smaller now. "I am not asking you to do anything improper. You are asking me to charge a cardholder for a new service while making that cardholder invisible on the document approving it." The office went quiet enough for me to hear the music check outside. A violinist drew one long note, stopped, then tried again. The sound came through the wall thin and uncertain. Monica folded her arms. "Raymond is family." I looked at the seating card still tucked in my jacket pocket. Helena looked at the addendum. "Family status does not authorize a charge," she said. "That sentence should be printed and handed out with every wedding binder in America." Monica turned toward me. "Are you really going to make Nora deal with this tonight?" There it was. The move from procedure to guilt. I had seen it before in smaller forms. A bill slid across my kitchen table with "only if you can" written at the top. A request framed as temporary. A silence after I asked for a receipt. Love had become a hallway where every door opened into another payment. "I am not making Nora deal with an after-party," I said. "You are." Monica's face tightened. Through the glass, I could see Nora still standing beside the seating chart, smoothing the front of her dress with both hands. She looked like a child trying to flatten water. Helena pulled a fresh form from a drawer and placed it beside the addendum. "If Mr. Ellis wants to approve this, he can sign here. If he does not, I will mark the request declined, and the existing event contract remains unchanged." "Declined," Monica said, as if the word belonged to people who wore paper wristbands at discount stores. "Yes." "Do you understand who is attending this wedding?" "I understand who signed the contract." I almost smiled then, not because anything was funny, but because competence can feel like mercy when you have been standing alone too long. Monica leaned closer to the desk. "This is ridiculous. Blake's father will reimburse Raymond next week." "Is Blake's father here to sign?" Helena asked. Monica did not answer. "Is there a payment card from him on file?" Still nothing. Helena clicked her pen. Once wrote "request" paused. Pending cardholder approval across the top of the incident note, and turned it toward me. "Mr. Ellis," she said, "you can approve it, decline it, or set a written limit on your card for tonight. 3 choices, clean, lawful, boring. After years of guessing what my help meant to Nora, Boring sounded like a door finally opening. I picked up the pen. Monica watched my hand as if she could still will it into obedience. The pen felt heavier than it should have. Maybe that sounds foolish, but a signature can become a door. I had opened enough of them for Nora without asking where they led. This time I did not sign the addendum. I signed only the incident note beneath Elena's sentence. Request paused pending cardholder approval. Then I wrote the time beside my name, because old habits are stubborn and useful. 6:51 p.m. Thank you, Elna said. Monica looked as if I had slapped her with manners. This is humiliating, she said. It is documentation, Elna answered. I put the pen down. I am going back to dinner. No one stopped me. That was the first small victory of the night, though it did not feel like one. It felt like walking back into a room where everyone had been rearranged while I was gone. The barn lights had dimmed. Servers were carrying salads. Someone had changed the playlist to old jazz because weddings believe soft music can make hard things disappear. My place card still sat at the overflow table, tucked between a photographer's assistant named Miles and a cousin of Blake's who was scrolling through his phone with both thumbs. Nora stood near the family table. Blake was beside her, but not with her. There is a difference. A man can stand close enough for photographs and still leave you alone, in every way that matters. Monica returned a few steps behind me and moved straight to Blake. She leaned toward his ear. His eyes flicked to the office door, then to me, then away. Nora saw that. She also saw me take my seat at the back table without complaint. That was what hurt her, I think. Not that I was angry. Anger would have given her something to push against. Silence made her look at what she had allowed. Miles, the photographer's assistant, gave me an apologetic smile. I think this table might be wrong, he whispered. It is accurate, I said. He did not know what to do with that, so he unfolded his napkin with great attention. I took the seating card from my jacket pocket and placed it beside my water glass. Raymond Ellis, Table 12, Vendors and Overflow. The paper was small, but it had done honest work. It showed exactly where the room thought I belonged. Across the barn, Nora touched Blake's arm and said something I could not hear. Blake shook his head once. Monica kept talking. Then Elena appeared at the edge of the room with the blue folder still against her side. She did not wave. She did not call attention. She simply held up one page where I could see the top line of the ledger. 6:42 p.m., the time of the after-party request. I looked from the ledger to my place card, and the gap between those two objects became the shape of the lie. They had moved me out of the family row first. Then they had tried to move my money where I could not see it. Elena did not bring the ledger to my table. She was too careful for that. Instead, she waited until the first course plates were being cleared, then passed behind the overflow table and said quietly, "When you are ready, Mr. Ellis." It was the kind of sentence that let a man keep his face. I stood, folded my napkin, and followed her back through the side hall. No one stopped me that time either, but I felt Nora watching. I did not turn around. If I looked at her too soon, I might start explaining myself, and explaining is how I had given away too many boundaries. In the office, Elna laid 3 pages on the desk. "This is the vendor activity ledger," she said. "It records every requested change once staff enters it into the event file." The first page listed harmless things: guest count confirmation, vegetarian meals, a microphone check, a request for 2 extra high chairs, normal wedding friction. Then the page changed. 6:42 p.m. private after-party addendum requested by Monica Vile. 6:43 p.m. premium bar extension requested. 6:44 p.m. late-night catering package requested. 6:45 p.m. shuttle vendor quote requested. I read the 4 lines twice. She did all that in 3 minutes. She asked my assistant to enter them as a package, Elna said. My assistant flagged it because the payment source did not match the requester. There it was again. A small, competent person keeping the night from becoming worse. Not a hero standing on a stage. Just an assistant who knew a form should not be cleaner than the truth. What happened before 6:42, I asked. Elena slid the earlier page toward me. 6:34 p.m. seating chart revision confirmed by Monica Vole. 6:35 p.m. Raymond Ellis moved from table 3 to table 12. 6:36 p.m. family table count adjusted. The room seemed to narrow around those lines. I had known I was moved. Seeing the time made it different. It turned a social slight into sequence. First removed the man from the visible family table, then within minutes asked the venue to expand the bill under his card. "Did Nora approve the seating change?" I asked. Elena read the entry. "The note says Monica requested it and Nora was present." Present. That word had teeth. Nora had not signed the addendum. Nora had not asked Elena to run my card. But she had stood close enough to the first erasure that the second one became easier. I sat down slowly. "Can I have a copy of this?" "Yes," Elena said, "for your records." She printed it without ceremony. The machine hummed, clicked, and delivered the cleanest accusation I had ever held. The paper was warm when I took it. That small heat made it feel newly born, as if the truth had only just entered the room and was already old enough to testify. At the bottom of the page, one more line waited. 6:46 p.m. Guest asked Mr. Ellis to step outside for air. I looked at Elena. "Which guest?" She did not answer right away, and that told me the ledger had not finished hurting me. Elena checked the ledger note again. "It says Monica Vale." For a moment I could hear her voice exactly as it had sounded near the seating chart. "Raymond, the courtyard is lovely this time of evening. You should see it before dinner starts." I had thought she was being awkwardly polite. Now I understood she had needed me out of the room while my name moved tables. I folded the ledger copy once and placed it beside the unsigned addendum. "You mentioned the hotel block," I said. Elena's expression changed in the smallest way. Not surprise, confirmation. "I think you should speak with Paula Grant," she said. "She coordinates the room block for this venue." Paula arrived 5 minutes later with reading glasses on top of her head and a tablet in her hand. She looked like a woman who had handled enough wedding weekends to know that the most dangerous sentence in hospitality was "We are all family here." "Mr. Ellis," she said. I pulled the block terms. She turned the tablet so I could see the contract. My name appeared again this time, beside a narrower line guarantor for 22 standard rooms, Friday and Saturday nights, released inventory after cutoff date. "That is what I agreed to," and I said. Correct," Paula said. "Standard rooms only. No suites, no hospitality rooms, no private lounge." Elena pointed to another tab on the tablet. "Show him the pending request." Paula's mouth tightened before she tapped the screen. "Pending request, 6:48 p.m. 2 executive suites. 1 hospitality room. Apply to existing guarantor." I looked at the time, 6 minutes after the after-party addendum. "Who made this request?" I asked, though by then I knew. "Monica Vale called the hotel desk from the lobby phone," Paula said. "The desk clerk entered it as pending because the block terms did not authorize those rooms." My chest felt cold, but my hands stayed steady. "That is one kindness age gives you. Sometimes the body knows panic is too expensive. Did any of it go through?" "No," Paula said. "Pending only." That word did more for me than comfort would have. Pending meant the lie had reached for my wallet and found a lock. It also meant the people at these desks had done what family had not. They had stopped at the line and asked who was allowed to cross it. Elena set the hotel terms beside the venue ledger. 2 documents now, 2 timestamps, 2 attempts to stretch my name into places I had not agreed to stand. Through the office window, I saw Nora walking toward us. Not Monica. Not Blake. Nora. She stopped outside the glass when she saw the papers lined up on the desk. For the first time all evening, my daughter looked less like a bride worried about appearances, and more like a woman realizing the cost of what she had allowed. Paula lowered her voice. "There is one more detail in the hotel note." I kept my eyes on Nora. "Read it," I said. Paula read the hotel note without looking at Nora through the glass. Caller stated father of bride preferred to keep his support private and would not object to upgraded family rooms if billed under existing guarantee. For a few seconds, no one in the office moved. The words were careful enough to sound harmless until you noticed what they stole. They took my silence and turned it into permission. They took my effort to spare Nora embarrassment and dressed it up as consent. Nora opened the office door before anyone invited her in. "Dad," she said. "Not Raymond, not Mr. Ellis. Dad." I should have been grateful for the word. Instead, it landed like something she had remembered, only because the papers had said my name first. Elena stepped back from the desk. Paula turned the tablet face down. Both women understood this was no longer just a payment issue. It was still a payment issue, and that mattered, but the wound had stepped out from behind the ledger. "Is that what you told them?" I asked. Nora looked at the unsigned addendum, the venue ledger, the hotel terms, and finally at me. Behind her, the dinner music kept moving through the wall, bright and careless. That made the office feel even smaller, as if truth had been given only this narrow room to breathe. "I told Monica you were helping with some things," she said. "Some things." Her hands closed around the edge of her dress. I did not tell her how much. Why not? The question was simple. That made it harder for her to dodge. Nora swallowed. Because every conversation with them turned into what my family could provide. Rehearsal dinner, flowers, hotel rooms, the guest experience. Monica kept saying the Vale side had standards, and I hated that I had to ask you for help at all. I waited. "I was ashamed," she said. The sentence came out small, but at least it came out straight. "Ashamed of needing help." I said, "Or ashamed that the help came from me." Her face changed. That was answer enough, but she still reached into the little white purse hanging from her wrist and took out her phone. Her thumb moved through messages until she found one and placed it on the desk between us. "Dad, please do not mention deposits tonight. I want them to think I handled more myself. I will explain after the wedding." I recognized my own reply beneath it. "All right. I am proud of you either way." I remembered sending that text from my kitchen table with the venue folder open beside a cold cup of coffee. I had thought I was protecting my daughter's pride. I had not understood I was handing her a curtain to hide me behind. "I never meant for Monica to charge you more," Nora said. "That is not what I asked." She flinched. I hated that part. I hated that asking a clean question could make my own child look wounded. But softness had already been used against clarity once tonight. I turned the phone back toward her, then set my finger beside the ledger. "Did you know she was trying to add charges after she erased me from the family table?" Nora looked at Blake before she answered. That was when I realized he had been standing outside the office door the whole time. He had one hand in his pocket and the other around his phone, dressed in a black suit that fit him better than his courage did. He was not angry. He was not confused. He looked like a man waiting for the room to decide which truth would cost him less. "Blake," I said. He stepped in only after Monica appeared behind him as if she were the force that moved him. "Mr. Ellis," he said, "this is getting bigger than it needs to be." He said it with a groom's polished calm, the kind practiced for photographs and toasts. But calm without honesty is only another kind of hiding. There are sentences that tell you a person has skipped the part where harm occurred and gone straight to the part where everyone must be quiet about it. I picked up the hotel tablet and turned it enough for him to see the pending request. "Were you copied on the hotel block email?" He glanced at the screen, then at Nora. "A lot of emails went around this week." That was not my question. Helena opened the event file on her computer. She did not need drama to apply pressure. She just clicked once, then printed another page. When the paper came out, she placed it beside the hotel terms. The email header showed Paula Grant, Monica Vale, Blake Vale, and Nora Ellis. I was not copied. Subject: Vale Hospitality add-ons if approved. The phrase "if approved" had done its job. It had left room for someone honest to stop. It had also left room for someone dishonest to pretend approval was only a detail. "You saw this," I said to Blake. He rubbed his thumb along the edge of his phone. "My mother handles hospitality. Did you tell her my card could cover it?" "No." "Did you tell her it could not?" He said nothing. Silence can be cleaner than a confession, because it does not waste time dressing itself up. It stands there and lets you see the space where character should have been. I had wanted to like him. I had wanted Nora to have someone beside her who could disappoint his mother before he disappointed his wife. That hope left quietly. Nora whispered his name, not as a question, but as if she were testing whether the man beside her was solid. Blake looked at her, then looked away. Monica stepped into the office, then perfume first, smile last. "This is absurd," she said. "Raymond, no one is stealing from you. We are trying to keep this weekend from looking cheap." Paula's eyes dropped to the papers. Helena's did not. Monica pointed toward the ballroom where music had started again, like nothing was wrong. "If the upgrade does not happen, some of our guests may leave. They flew in expecting a certain standard." I looked at Blake. He still said nothing, and that was the moment I stopped waiting for him to become the husband my daughter needed in front of me. I did not raise my voice at Monica. At 66, a man learns that volume is often what people use when they have run out of facts. I still had facts. They were on the desk, clean and dated and warm from the printer. I said, "May I write an instruction for the file?" She opened a drawer and handed me a blank event account form with the venue letterhead at the top. Monica made a sound under her breath. "You cannot be serious." "I am." I took the pen Elena offered. My hand did not shake, but I wrote slowly because vague sentences had carried us into this room. I wanted no one to later claim they misunderstood. The room had become a place where every extra word could become a handle for someone else to pull. So I made the language plain. I authorized payment only for the previously agreed venue deposits, contracted dinner service, contracted basic bar service, agreed floral balance, and the 22 standard hotel rooms under the original room block terms. I do not authorize any private after-party premium bar extension, late-night catering package, shuttle upgrade, executive suite, hospitality room, private lounge, or any charge requested by a person other than me without my separate written signature. I paused. Then I added one more line. Any pending request outside these terms must remain pending or be billed to the requester using that requester's own payment method. I signed my name, Raymond Ellis, not father of bride, not guest, not backup card. My name as it appeared on every document they had tried to use without letting me stand beside it. Elena read the instruction once, then nodded. "This is clear." Paula picked up the hotel tablet. "I will attach the same limitation to the room block." Monica's face tightened. "So you are punishing Nora on her wedding weekend?" That was the old trap, and for most of my life I had stepped into it before it was fully set. If I said no to an unfair request, someone called it punishment. If I asked for truth, someone called it drama. If I wanted respect attached to the money leaving my account, someone called it pride. This time I did not step. "No," I said. "I am refusing to let my name be used past my consent." Nora looked down. Blake looked at the door. Monica looked at Elena because Monica still believed every room had someone she could pressure into translating her wants into policy. Helena stamped the instruction received and wrote the time beside it, 6:56 p.m. Then she looked at me with the same careful calm she had used from the beginning. "Mr. Ellis, do you want to cancel the wedding services entirely?" The office went still. Even Monica stopped moving. For the first time, the power to end the night sat openly, where everyone could see it. I thought of Nora as a little girl standing on my work boots while we danced in the kitchen. I thought of the woman in front of me, old enough to hurt me, and young enough to still learn from it. "No," I said. "The wedding can continue." Helena did not smile when I said the wedding could continue. That was one more reason I trusted her. She understood the difference between kindness and performance. She simply turned the stamped instruction around on the desk and drew a line under the charges I had approved. "For clarity," she said, "these services remain covered under Mr. Ellis's original authorization." She read them out in the same even voice she had used for every uncomfortable fact that evening. Venue deposit, dinner service, basic bar package, floral balance already scheduled through the vendor account. Room block limited to 22 standard rooms Friday and Saturday. Each item sounded ordinary. Each item had once felt like love when I paid it. Not grand love, practical love. The kind that shows up as a routing number, a signed receipt, a calendar reminder, and a man sitting alone at his kitchen table, making sure his daughter does not start married life apologizing to vendors. I had never needed applause for any of it. That was the part Nora had misunderstood. Privacy had not hurt me. Erasure had. There is a difference between helping quietly and being hidden so someone else can spend louder. Everything outside that list is denied under my card, I said. Helena nodded and opened the event ledger. "I will mark the after-party premium bar extension, late-night catering shuttle quote suites and hospitality room as not authorized by cardholder." Paula added, "The hotel can keep the request pending for 15 minutes. After that, if no valid payment method is provided, the suites and hospitality room are released." Monica stared at Paula as if a hotel coordinator had personally betrayed civilization. "Released to whom?" "To inventory," Paula said. It was not a dramatic answer. That made it better. Nora still had not sat down. She stood near the corner of the desk, one hand pressed against her purse, watching the clean split appear in the ledger. Covered. Denied. Covered. Denied. There was mercy in the covered column. There was truth in the denied one. That Nora said You do not have to pay for any of it. I believe she meant it in that moment. I also knew moments are cheap when no one has had to live inside the consequences yet. I know, I said. But I gave my word on the wedding services I agreed to. I am keeping my word. I am not keeping anyone else's. She closed her eyes for half a second. When she opened them, she looked older than she had at dinner. Not ruined, just less protected by the story she had been telling herself. Helena printed the revised ledger. This time my name appeared only beside the approved lines. Monica's name appeared beside the pending add-ons with 3 words after each one. Requester payment required. Blake finally looked at the paper long enough to understand what silence was going to cost. Monica reached for her phone. Fine, she said. Then I will handle it at the desk myself. Helena picked up the unsigned addendum. Then you will need to sign under your own name. Monica walked to the front desk like she expected the carpet to apologize for being under her shoes. I did not follow at first. I stayed in the office doorway with Nora beside me and watched through the glass panel as Elena moved behind the desk with the addendum in her hand. Paula remained near the hotel station tablet, ready-faced calm. The ballroom doors were open now. Guests crossed the lobby in little groups carrying champagne glasses and unfinished opinions. A few looked toward the front desk, then away. Wedding guests have a powerful instinct for pretending not to notice the exact thing everyone is watching. I understood that instinct. I had lived half my life giving other people exits from uncomfortable rooms. But this time the discomfort belonged where it had started. It belonged with the person who thought my signature could be borrowed after my chair had been moved. Monica placed her phone on the counter. Run it on mine, she said. Helena slid the addendum toward her. I can do that after you sign as requester and cardholder for the optional services. I am the groom's mother. The form needs the requester and cardholder signature. This is family. It is also an account. That sentence stopped near the ceiling and stayed there. Monica leaned closer. Her voice dropped, but anger made it carry. Do you understand how much business the Vale family could bring this venue? Helena did not look toward the ballroom. She did not check whether anyone important was listening. She tapped the unsigned line with one finger. I understand that this addendum is unsigned, because you dragged Raymond into it. Mr. Ellis is the cardholder for the original authorization, Elena said. He was already in it. I felt Nora shift beside me. There are times when a child hears a stranger defend a parent and the shame finally has nowhere else to hide. I did not look at her. I let her have the privacy of that realization, even standing in public. Blake stood on Nora's other side jaw, tight eyes fixed on the counter. For once his silence did not protect him. It only made the whole room notice how long he had been letting women fight around him while he stayed clean in the middle. Monica picked up the pen, then stopped. If I sign this, it looks like I added it. Paula answered before Elena could. You did request the hotel add-ons? That was preliminary. Then the pending request can expire. Monica's mouth tightened. She looked past them and found me in the doorway. You are ruining the wedding over a form. Elena turned the addendum slightly so the blank signature line faced Monica again. No, she said. The question is who tried to charge a guest card for services the guest did not request. The lobby quieted in the way rooms quiet when truth has become easier to hear than music. Then Blake said from behind us, Mom, stop. It was only 2 words. They did not repair anything. They did not make him brave retroactively. But they put a crack in the performance, and through that crack, Nora finally looked at him as if she was seeing not a groom, but a choice. Blake's voice did not sound brave. It sounded late. Still, it was the first word he had spent against his mother all evening, and that gave the room a new shape. Monica turned on him with a look that had probably ended arguments in his family for 30 years. Blake, not now? Yes, he said, now. Nora's eyes moved from him to me, then to the papers in Elena's hand. She looked exhausted in the way people look when they realize a perfect wedding timeline cannot protect an imperfect truth. No one mentioned flowers music or the photographer waiting outside. Those details still mattered, but they had become smaller than the question on the desk, who was allowed to use my name and who was willing to admit they had benefited from hiding it. Helena did not let the lobby become the stage Monica wanted. We can continue this in the event office, she said. The ceremony team needs a decision on timing. That was how 6 of us ended up around the small desk, Elena, Paula, Monica, Blake, Nora, and me. The music from the ballroom softened behind the closed door. On the desk, Elena arranged the venue contract, the original card authorization, the unsigned after-party addendum, the vendor ledger, the hotel block terms, and my stamped payment limit instruction. No one had to raise a voice. The papers had weight enough. Elena pointed to the contract first. The venue can proceed with contracted services. Optional services require separate approval. Paula placed the hotel tablet beside it. The room block remains 22 standard rooms only unless a new payment method signs for changes. Monica sat with her purse in her lap, both hands clasped over it. The gesture made her look composed until you saw how tight her knuckles were. "This is humiliating," she said. I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because humiliation had been treated all evening like something only important people were allowed to feel. Nora spoke before I did. Dad was moved to table 12. Monica looked at her. That was a seating adjustment. He was paying for the wedding, some of it. Elena slid the original authorization forward. The contracted charges in our file named Mr. Ellis as the limited cardholder for the listed services. Blake stared at the desk. "Nora, I knew he was helping. I did not know it was this much." That was almost an apology, and almost apologies are dangerous because they ask to be treated like the full thing. Nora did not rescue him from it. Nora's answer came quietly. "Neither did your mother until she needed his card." For the first time, Monica did not answer immediately. I reached for the contract and turned it toward Nora. There was a line halfway down the second page, plain enough for anyone who wanted truth more than cover. I had read that line when I signed the first authorization. Back then, it had seemed like routine contract language. Now it felt like the only sentence in the room that had never tried to flatter, shame, or corner me. "Read that line out loud," I said. Nora looked at me. "Please," I said. "Not for them, for us." Nora looked down at the contract as if it might change if she gave it enough time. It did not. Paper can be cruel that way. It does not soften because you are sorry. It does not rearrange itself to protect the person who finally understands too late. Her finger found the line I had pointed to. Authorized cardholder. She read, and her voice caught. Elena waited. Paula waited. Blake stared at the carpet. Monica looked toward the office door as if escape were a reasonable legal strategy. I could hear the muffled scrape of chairs from the ballroom. Somewhere beyond that wall, people were still expecting a ceremony, a toast, a clean story about two families joining. In this room, the joining had to pass through the truth first. Nora started again. Authorized cardholder Raymond Ellis. Authorization limited to contracted venue. Deposit dinner service, basic bar package, scheduled floral balance, and standard hotel room block as listed. Any additional services require separate written approval from cardholder. She stopped there. No one helped her. I did not want her humiliated. That was the strange, stubborn truth. Even after the seating chart, the hotel note, the addendum, and the silence, I did not want my daughter's pain used as entertainment. But I did need her to hear the sentence she had hidden beneath flowers and seating cards. "Keep going," I said quietly. She read the final line. "Requester is responsible for charges outside authorized scope." The room became smaller around that sentence. Monica crossed her arms. "This is legal language. It does not reflect family intent." Elena answered without heat. "It reflects payment authority." Nora put one hand over her mouth. I had seen that gesture when she was 7 and had knocked over a lamp when she was 16 and dented my old truck backing out of the driveway when she was 22 and called me from her apartment because she had misread a lease. Back then, the gesture meant she was afraid I would be angry. This time, I think she was afraid I had finally become tired. That night she said, "I told myself I was protecting you from questions." "Were you?" She shook her head. "I was protecting myself from admitting I still needed you." That hurt in a cleaner way. Not less, but cleaner. Because need was not the problem. What damages a family is not need. It is pretending the person meeting the need should disappear afterward. Blake finally raised his eyes. "Nora, I should have said something sooner." She looked at him for a long second. "Yes," she said, "you should have. It was not a fight. It was worse for him than that. It was a fact." Monica stood. "We are losing time." I kept my eyes on Nora. "Time is not what we are losing," I said. Nora folded the contract carefully and slid it back across the desk, not to Elena, but to me. "I am sorry," she said. "Not because the paperwork caught it, because I let you be smaller in a room you were holding up. I wanted to answer quickly. Habit told me to forgive fast so she could breathe. But a father who loves his daughter has to teach her the difference between comfort and repair. Helena turned to her computer. Before we decide timing, she said, I want the payment status clear for everyone in this room. She opened the terminal report and printed one more page. By then, the printer had become the seventh person in the office, steady and unforgiving, giving voice to things people had tried to smooth over. Helena placed the report in the center of the desk. No charge outside authorization is processed, she said. I felt the room exhale in different ways. Nora with relief. Blake with self-protection. Monica with irritation because a clean record made it harder to play victim. Me with something quieter than all of them because I had been carrying the fear that the damage might already have reached my account. Helena pointed to the first line. After-party addendum not signed, not processed. Second line. Premium bar extension pending request closed under cardholder limitation. Third. Late-night catering pending request closed under cardholder limitation. Fourth. Hotel suites and hospitality room pending under hotel desk until requester payment is provided. Paula nodded. If Monica signs and provides payment, those rooms may be held if still available. If she does not, the original block remains unchanged. Monica's face shifted when Paula used her first name. Not because it was rude, because it made the responsibility land where it belonged. So nothing happened, Monica said. Something happened, I said. Everyone looked at me. The money did not leave my account, but the attempt still told me what people thought my name was for. That was the line I had not known I was going to say until it was out. For years, my name had been a simple thing. It was on utility bills, work badges, tax forms, school emergency cards, the little league sign-up sheet I filled out when Nora decided she wanted to try softball and hated it after 2 practices. A name is supposed to point to a person. Tonight mine had been treated like a door code. Nora lowered her eyes again. Blake did too. Monica did not. She looked at me with the baffled annoyance of someone who believed consequences should require a completed transaction. Helena clipped the terminal report to the unsigned addendum. This stays in the incident file, she said. It documents that the requested charges were not processed and why. The word incident seemed to bother Monica more than anything else had. It made the evening official in a way gossip could not. You are making us look dishonest, she said. Elena's answer was simple. The file records actions. That was why Elena's calm mattered. She was not calling anyone names. She was not performing outrage on my behalf. She was keeping the record clean enough that no one could later turn the evening into a misunderstanding with flowers around it. Monica looked at the addendum, then at her phone, then at Blake. For the first time, he did not step forward to soften the room for her. Sign it yourself, he said, or cancel the after-party. And there it was. The choice she had tried to give me had finally found its proper owner. Monica did not cancel the after-party in front of us. She also did not sign right away. That was its own answer. For all her talk about standards, the upgrade had mattered most when someone else could be made responsible for it. Helena checked the ceremony timeline and picked up her radio. Contracted services proceed, she said into it. Family seating adjustment coming to banquet captain. Optional add-ons remain pending. The words moved through the building faster than any apology would have. Staff knew what to do with instructions. Families were the ones who complicated simple things. Nora turned to me. Can I fix the seating chart? I almost said yes because I wanted the evening to hurt less. Then I stopped myself. A moved place card was not the whole injury, and putting me back at table 3 would not magically make the truth clean. You can fix your part, I said. She nodded once slowly. That was the first time all night she accepted a limit without trying to make it sound like rejection. I noticed. A parent notices those things even when the heart is sore. Helena handed her a blank seating change slip. Nora wrote my name herself, then paused. Where do you want to sit? That question mattered more than table 3 ever had. I looked through the office window toward the ballroom. I could see the family table from there crowded with flowers and people who had already practiced their smiles. I could also see a small 2-seat table near the side aisle close enough to watch the vows, and far enough that I would not spend the ceremony performing forgiveness for guests. There, I said. Nora followed my gaze. Not with me. Today you need to stand honestly where you are, I said. I need to sit honestly where I am. Her eyes filled, but she did not argue. I could have chosen the front row to make a point. I could have chosen the back corner to disappear completely. The side aisle was neither. It let me witness without pretending everything had been repaired before it had even been named. Helena gave the slip to a staff member. Within minutes, the new place card arrived. It did not say guest. It did not say sponsor. It did not try to explain me to anyone. Raymond Ellis. That was enough. The ceremony started 9 minutes late. Most guests never knew why. They saw music flowers, a bride walking carefully down an aisle, a groom looking like he had aged several years before reaching the altar. Monica sat stiffly in the front row, her phone face down in her lap. I did not know whether she had signed for the after-party. For once, it was not my problem. When Nora reached the end of the aisle, she looked at me before she looked at Blake. It was brief. No dramatic apology, no speech. Just one clear look that said she knew who had stayed after being made small. I stayed seated. That was not punishment. It was peace with boundaries. The reception began with polite energy. People ate, laughed too loudly, and pretended the ceremony delay belonged to flowers or traffic or some harmless thing a wedding could absorb. I sat near the side aisle with a plate I barely touched and watched Nora move through the room like a woman carrying two dresses at once. One everyone could see. One made of everything she now had to answer for. She came to me after the first dance. No photographer followed her. No microphone waited. She had enough sense by then to leave performance at the table. "Can we talk somewhere quiet?" she asked. I looked at the ballroom, then at the hallway. Yes. Blake saw us leave. He started to move, then stopped when Nora shook her head. That small refusal told me more than any promise could have. She was not bringing him to translate her apology or protect her from my answer. We stood near a small service alcove where stacked chairs and folded linens made the room feel honest. Nora held my venue folder against her chest. I had not seen her take it from Elena's office, but there it was, the same worn folder I had carried in from the parking lot. "I looked through it," she said. "All of it?" She nodded. "Deposits, receipts, hotel guarantee, the floral balance, the payment schedule." Her eyes filled again, but this time she did not ask the tears to do the work for her. "I turned your help into something I could use without naming you," she said. "Then when Monica treated you like a guest, I let it be convenient." That was the truest sentence she had said all night. I leaned against the wall because my knees had finally started to feel the hours. "Why did you let it go that far?" Nora looked down at the folder. "Because I wanted the Vale family to think I had more control than I did. I thought if I looked independent enough, Blake would not feel like he was marrying into a problem. And now," she glanced toward the ballroom where Blake stood alone near the cake table, while Monica spoke to two guests with her smile back in place. "Now I think I was asking the wrong family to respect me." I did not answer for a moment. That was her lesson to keep. If I rushed to comfort her, I would turn the lesson into another bill paid by me. So I let the silence stand between us, not as punishment, but as the space where responsibility could finally take up its own room. Nora opened the folder and pulled out the revised ledger. "I want a repayment plan," she said. "Not someday, not after things settle down, a real one. Money is not the first thing you owe me." "I know. What is—" She held the ledger tighter. "Honest terms." That was when I let myself breathe a little. "Then start there," I said. "With Blake, with yourself, with me. No more hiding help and calling it independence." She nodded. For the first time that night, it felt less like a wedding had broken something and more like it had revealed what needed repair. The wedding weekend ended without a scene. That may disappoint people who like their justice loud, but most real consequences arrive with email receipts and tired Monday mornings. On Monday at 9:12 a.m., Elna sent the final venue ledger. The subject line was plain "Ellis authorization closed." I opened it at my kitchen table with a fresh cup of coffee in the same folder beside me. The numbers were exactly what they should have been. Contracted dinner service, basic bar package, venue balance, floral balance, original room block adjustment after 2 unused rooms were released. No private after party on my card, no premium bar extension, no late night catering, no shuttle upgrade, no suites, no hospitality room. I read that list twice. Not because I doubted Elena, because a man who has been treated like a blank check needs to see the zeros where the extras could have been. Relief sometimes looks like boring accounting. At the bottom of the ledger, Elena had attached a note. Card authorization closed at cardholder request. No further charges permitted without new written authorization. I printed it and placed it behind the stamped payment limit instruction. Some men keep trophies. I keep paperwork that reminds me where my name ends. Nora came by that evening. She did not bring Blake. She did not bring wedding leftovers or a speech she had practiced in the car. She brought a notebook, a pen, and a bank statement. I can pay this much monthly, she said, sliding the paper across the table. It will take time. It will, I said. I know that does not fix what I did. No. She took that answer without folding. That mattered. The old Nora would have rushed to explain until my no became softer. This Nora sat with it. Maybe only because the weekend had scared her. Maybe because she was finally growing. Either way, I was not going to waste the first honest moment by pretending it was complete healing. We worked through the numbers for almost an hour. I did not make her pay interest. I did not forgive the debt into a hug either. We wrote dates, amounts, and a line that said any future help had to be discussed honestly before a dollar moved. Then we wrote a second line, because money had not been the only thing damaged. No family contribution will be hidden from any person affected by it. When she signed the plan, her hand shook. Mine did not. That night after she left, I opened the side pocket of the folder and found the old place card from table 12. I must have slipped it in there without thinking. Guessed. One word, black ink, cheap paper heavy as a brick. I held it over the trash can for a long time. Then I put it behind the final ledger. Not because I wanted to stay angry. Because forgetting too quickly is how a boundary becomes available for reuse. I closed the folder and left it on the table until morning. It did not feel like evidence anymore. It felt like a fence, and for once the fence did not make the house smaller. It made it mine again. I did not stop loving my daughter after that weekend. Love is not that fragile, and if it is, it was never love. But love changed shape once I stopped confusing quiet sacrifice with unlimited permission. For years I had thought being a good father meant making the road smoother and asking as little as possible in return. There is dignity in that up to a point. Then the road gets so smooth that the person walking it forgets someone else filled the holes. Nora kept the repayment plan. Not perfectly. Life is not clean enough for perfectly. She missed 1 month when her car needed repairs, called me before the due date, and asked to move that payment to the end. I said yes because she asked before assuming. That mattered more than the money. The difference was not the amount. It was the ask. Blake had harder work to do. I did not become his judge. Nora did not need me standing between them forever. But I told her once at my kitchen table that a husband who cannot tell his mother no will eventually make his wife pay for the silence. She did not argue. As for Monica, I heard from Paula that the hospitality rooms were released, and the private after-party became a smaller gathering paid on a veil card. That was the correct size for it. Things become more modest when the person ordering them has to sign. The unsigned after-party addendum stayed in my folder. So did the stamped limit instruction, the closed authorization note, the final ledger, and the place card that called me guest. I did not keep them to rehearse bitterness. I kept them the way a man keeps a map after getting lost on a road he thought he knew, because there is a lesson in my name, appearing on one line and disappearing from another. Respect cannot be bought by paying the bill. It also cannot be demanded after you have trained people to receive your help without seeing your face. That was my part to learn. Nora had hers. She learned that independence built on hidden help is not independence. It is debt with a prettier dress. She learned that shame does not protect a parent from judgment. It only leaves that parent standing alone when judgment comes. The wedding photos eventually arrived. In one of them, I am sitting near the side aisle, not at the family table, not at the back. Nora is looking toward me before she walks forward. People might miss it if they do not know the story. I do not miss it. Sometimes dignity is not getting the best seat in the room. Sometimes it is choosing the seat where your name still belongs to you. I wish I had learned that earlier. I am glad I learned it while there was still time to teach it gently. And if someone you love ever asks you to hide the help you give them, ask one question before you open your wallet. Are they protecting your privacy, or are they practicing your erasure? This story is not really about a wedding bill. It is about the quiet danger of paying for your own erasure. Real family conflicts often hide inside celebrations because nobody wants to spoil the day challenge, the seating chart. or ask why their help must remain invisible. But dignity matters in public too. If someone accepts your money, your labor, or your sacrifice while asking you to disappear, that is not privacy. That is practice. The lesson is not to stop helping the people you love. The lesson is to help with terms clear enough that generosity does not become a costume someone else wears. A seat at the table is not payment. It is basic respect. This story was dramatized and edited from real public dispute patterns and official source research. Details were changed and combined for privacy and storytelling. This is not legal, medical, financial, or professional advice.